My fiancé, Fong Heshuan, is a brilliant scholar with the talent of a top-ranked scholar. Yet he fell deeply in love with a prostitute, becoming obsessed with her and neglecting his studies, fearing he would ruin his future. I exposed the woman as his former classmate who had deliberately approached him to disrupt his moral compass. The prostitute, filled with shame and anger, swallowed gold and took her own life that night. From then on, Fong Heshuan buried himself in his studies, eventually becoming the top scholar in the imperial examinations and rising swiftly to become a powerful minister. Unbeknownst to me, he harbored a deep hatred for me, fabricating charges to exterminate my entire family, seizing our vast fortune, and selling me into a brothel where I was tortured to death. If it weren't for you, Yenner would be my wife now. Shin Fei Yu, you deserve to die. Chapter 1. When I awoke to my rebirth, Fong Heshuan had just come to my home demanding silver to redeem the prostitute. My father was so enraged he wanted to drive him out. I stopped him and presented the silver with both hands. My engagement to Fong Lingjun is now null and void. This silver is a wedding gift for you and Yenner. May you have 100 years of happiness together. When Fong Heshuan came to demand the silver, I had just been reborn. The maid Taoshi was furious. A beauty like our young miss could end up with such a faithless man? That Fong fellow must be an idiot. I've never seen such a shameless person in my life. He goes out to sleep with prostitutes and has no money. Yet he dares to come ask his fiancée for silver. It's like a knife cutting my butt. What a sight. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. And as I laughed, tears fell from my eyes. Taoshi panicked and softened her voice to comfort me. Miss, why are you crying? It's all my fault. I shouldn't have spoken out of turn. Miss, don't be sad. Master will definitely stand up for you. I hugged her and wept uncontrollably. Taoshi had sold herself into our household as a maid. She had 5 younger sisters and a younger brother. Their family was so poor they couldn't even afford food. Her parents wanted to marry her off to a lame old bachelor in exchange for a dowry. But she refused to accept her fate. She mustered up the courage to stop my carriage and asked if I would buy her as a maid. Just 3 taels of silver. I'll work as hard as a horse for you, and I'll spend the rest of my life repaying your kindness. In her previous life, she truly kept her word. After Fong Heshuan came to power, he sold both me and Taoshi into a brothel. To prevent those customers from defiling me, she worked tirelessly, eventually being beaten to death in bed. When I saw her, she was barely clothed, her body covered in wounds. With only her last breath remaining, I'm sorry, miss. Taoshi can no longer protect you. Escape. The farther the better. Before she could finish, she died in my arms. I didn't flee but sat there all night, waiting for Fong Heshuan to come find me. Upon hearing of Taoshi's death, he indeed came. Are you suffering? But your pain today doesn't even compare to mine back then. I smiled sweetly and offered him wine. She was just a lowly maid. Why do you speak so harshly? Sir? Come. Let me pour you some wine. Seeing none of the collapse, anger, or loss of composure he had expected, Fong Heshuan flew into a rage. He swept his hand, knocking over the wine cup, and coldly shouted, "You're just a worthless woman. You're an emotionless monster." I seized the opportunity to pull out a dagger and stabbed toward his heart. To my surprise, even in his rage, he remained vigilant, dodging the fatal blow. The dagger pierced his shoulder. His guards rushed in and pinned me to the ground. I remained silent, glaring at him with a cold, menacing stare. He clutched his bleeding shoulder and laughed hysterically. Good. Good. Seeing you like this puts my mind at ease. In front of me. He ground Taoshi's body into dust. He then forced me to kneel before my father's grave and allowed the men to rape me at will. He sat there, enjoying the scene with a smug expression. The high and mighty Miss Shin. Didn't you look down on prostitutes? How does it feel to be one now? I mustered all my strength to curse him fiercely. Fong Hshuan, you who repay kindness with betrayal will surely be punished by heaven. I curse you to have no descendants and die a miserable death. Enraged by my words, he stomped on my head with his foot and snarled, I will be punished by heaven and die a miserable death? If it weren't for you, Yenner would be my wife now. Shin Fei Yu, you deserve to die. You are the one who deserves divine retribution. It was utterly ridiculous. For a woman who deceived him and toyed with his feelings. He had lain in wait for 7 years, resorting to any means necessary to avenge her. I bit my tongue off with all my strength and chose to end my own life. As the excruciating pain surged through me, I thought faintly, in my next life, if there is one, I will never stop Fong Hshuan from descending into depravity. I will be the spectator sitting below the stage. I will watch him build his tower, entertain his guests, and watch it collapse. After weeping bitterly, I finally calmed down. I took the peach branch and went to the front hall. Fong Hshuan stood with his hands behind his back in the courtyard. He was still just a poor scholar, slender and elegant, exuding an air of scholarly refinement. It was hard to imagine such a scholar could be so obsessed with a prostitute. He spoke to my father with dignity. If my father-in-law could lend me some silver to redeem Yenner, I will never forget your kindness. My father was so angry he was blowing his beard and glaring at him, ready to kick him out immediately. Spit. Where did this shameless rogue come from? Are you all dead? Come on. Get him out of here. The servants, upon hearing the order, rushed forward. Just as Fong Hshuan was about to be carried out the front door, I rushed forward to stop them. Wait. Fong Hshuan saw me and his eyes lit up with joy. Fei Yu, you've come just in time. Come help me persuade my father-in-law. I coldly replied, Mr. Fong, watch your words. There's no such thing as your father-in-law here. My father froze. And Fong Hshuan also froze. Then turned to me with a humiliated expression and demanded, Fei Yu, what do you mean by that? I smiled and said, it means exactly what I said. Our engagement was merely a verbal agreement between our elders. Now that you have found someone you love, let's call off this verbal agreement. Fong Hshuan glared at me, his face alternating between pale and red with anger. The Fong family was a destitute household. Fong's father was a gambler who had lost the family fortune. To escape his debts, he panicked and jumped into the river, drowning to death. Fong's mother worked day and night embroidering, her eyes eventually blinded from the strain, just to pay off the debts. However, she was no longer able to afford Fong Hshuan's education. Thus, the widow and her son turned to my Shin family. This was because my grandfather had once made an oral agreement with Fong's grandfather to marry their children. My father spared no expense, fully supporting Fong Hshuan's education, smoothing out relationships behind the scenes, sending him to the Butsai Academy, purchasing a small house outside the town, and even hiring a few servants through a matchmaker. Finally, the Fong family managed to settle down in Qingshui town. It can be said that Fong Hshuan's success today is inseparable from the Shin family's selfless assistance. Therefore, even though Fong Hshuan is deeply in love with a prostitute, he hasn't let his feelings cloud his judgment and break off the engagement with me. He even promised my father that it would not affect my position as his legitimate wife. But he never expected that I would dare to propose the breakup first. Fong Hshuan took a deep breath, trying to speak sweetly to me. Fei Yu, are you jealous? No matter how much I love Yenner, she will only ever be a concubine. Once I pass the imperial examination and become a high-ranking official, I will definitely secure a noble title for you. And in the future, I will even request an imperial decree for you. These words were sickening to hear. I frowned and interrupted him, instructing Taoshi to open the small box in her hands and show it to him. There are 1,000 taels of silver in here. Enough to redeem your Yenner. Fong Heshuan saw the stack of silver notes and his eyes lit up. I took a sip of tea and spoke slowly. As long as you write a document renouncing our engagement, sign it, and press your fingerprints on it, all this silver will be yours. Fong Heshuan remained silent for a moment. Finally, he picked up the brush, ink, paper, and inkstone that had been prepared earlier, wrote the document, pressed his fingerprint on it, and threw it on the ground, saying coldly, "Shin Fei Yu. Don't regret this." The maid picked up the document and checked it carefully for me. I signaled to Taoji to hand him the box of silver notes. "This silver is a wedding gift for you and Miss Yenner. May you have 100 years of happiness together. Someone, escort the guests out." Fong Heshuan shook off the servant's hands and left in a hurry. My father remained silent throughout, letting me sever this ill-fated relationship with my own hands. He looked at my tear-stained eyes with heartbreak. "It's okay. Your father will find you a husband 1,000 times better than him." In my previous life, my father had been so angry that he wanted to call off the engagement. At the time, I was foolish and tried to comfort my father. Food and sex are natural desires. A prostitute's allure is understandable, and Fong Longjuan's infatuation with her is forgivable. The Shin family had invested so much money and effort into cultivating Fong Heshuan for so long. I didn't want to give up halfway. After all, he did have some talent in his studies. The current emperor was incompetent, and treacherous ministers held power. My father was once the wealthiest man in the great Zhou dynasty. Well aware of the saying that great trees attract the wind, he sold all his assets, retired from the world, and moved his family to the remote town of Qingshui, where he lived as an inconspicuous wealthy man. I was naturally intelligent, but though my father raised me like a son from childhood, I was still a woman. Women couldn't take the imperial exams, couldn't engage in commerce, and could only be confined to the confines of the inner courtyard. Moreover, as I grew older, my beauty became breathtaking, rivaling that of a goddess. In times of chaos, beautiful women rarely meet a good end. My father realized he needed to cultivate a trustworthy person who knew me inside out to protect me for life. Fortunately, Fong Heshuan appeared. He was renowned for his talent but came from a poor family. While the Shin family had no shortage of money, Fong Heshuan was well aware that the Shin family had spared no expense to educate him, hoping that one day he would rise to prominence and repay the family. That was why he dared to come to the Shin household and demand money to redeem a prostitute. He was certain we wouldn't dare to defy him. He was also certain that my father could find no one more suitable than him as a son-in-law. In my previous life, I had indeed planned to agree to Fong Heshuan's proposal. Before agreeing, I disguised myself as a man and went to the brothel to see Yenner one last time. However, I accidentally overheard her and Fong Heshuan's classmate, Wang Zhonghuai, plotting something. Wang Zhonghuai was a wealthy young man, handsome and talented, but he always fell short of Fong Heshuan in his studies. Out of jealousy and hatred, he came up with such a scheme to ruin someone's future. I revealed all the truth to Fong Heshuan, who was deeply shaken and impulsively went to confront Yenner. No one knows what they argued about that night. In any case, after he left, Yenner swallowed gold and killed herself. When Fong Heshuan heard the news, he was devastated and wanted to give her a proper burial. However, the madam said that her body had been secretly disposed of at a mass grave during the night. He searched day and night for 3 days and 3 nights but couldn't find her. She was likely devoured by wild beasts. But I never imagined that Fong Heshuan didn't blame himself for acting impulsively, didn't blame Wang Zhonghuai for trying to harm him, and didn't blame Yenner for deceiving his feelings. Instead, he held me and the Shin family entirely responsible. He's of foolish ingratitude. Fortunately, heaven has eyes and granted me a second chance at life. In this lifetime, the Shin family will be under my protection. Emerging from my lengthy recollections, I fixed my gaze on my father. Father, There's no rush to find a husband. There are more urgent matters at hand. 2 years later, the eldest princess will emerge victorious in the imperial succession struggle and ascend the throne as empress. I can leverage my foresight from my previous life and the Shin family's wealth, which rivals that of a nation, to help the eldest princess secure the imperial throne. At that time, the Shin family will have the merit of supporting the dragon. Even if Fang Heshuan harbors resentment toward the Shin family for breaking off the engagement, what does he have to compete with me? The story of Fang Heshuan being rejected by the Shin family and redeeming himself from prostitution has caused a stir in Qingshui town. Some people think that Fang Heshuan, a scholar, spends his days chasing women and indulging in sensual pleasures, bringing shame upon his scholarly background. Others support Fang Heshuan, arguing that a true man should only worry about achieving fame and fortune, not about finding a wife. How can a man of his stature be controlled by a woman? Once he passes the imperial exams and enters the court as an official, will he not be able to marry a woman from a prestigious family? What if the Shin family is wealthy? They are merely merchants. While the commotion raged outside, I remained oblivious, busy beyond measure. I emptied the Shin family's granaries and invested heavily to swiftly prepare 10,000 stone of grain and fodder, ready to be transported to the front lines. In my previous life, Princess Zhou Wanlan led the Red Army, fighting against the elite cavalry of the Great Jin Empire with no supplies or reinforcements. The Red Army was nearly annihilated, but they managed to defeat the Great Jin forces, though it was a bitter victory. While Zhou Wanlan fought on the battlefield, her brothers and sisters all sought to kill her. It was this campaign that made her see the corruption of the court, the incompetence of those in power, and the ruthlessness of her siblings, leading her to resolve to seize the throne. According to the timeline, this was precisely the moment when Zhou Wanlan desperately needed provisions. The provisions I had prepared were a timely lifeline, helping Zhou Wanlan resolve her urgent crisis. Sure enough, with my assistance, the Red Army emerged victorious, suffering minimal casualties and preserving their main forces. And I finally got to meet the eldest princess, Zhou Wanlan. The stunningly beautiful yet stern female general sat inside the command tent, asking me coldly what I wanted. I removed my veil and bowed gracefully before her. The Shin family is willing to sacrifice all our wealth to help the general ascend the throne. We only ask that the empress protect the Shin family in the future. Zhou Wanlan glared at me with cold eyes, her black pupils deep and unmoving. The intimidating aura of a ruler was evident. But I did not back down, staring at her for a long time. By directly exposing her thoughts, I risked being silenced and facing certain death. I was taking a gamble, betting that she wouldn't kill me. In my previous life, to be a good wife to Fang Heshuan, I had come to know Empress Zhou Wanlan deeply. She was the eldest daughter of the Empress Dowager, who came from a military family. From a young age, the princess had an extraordinary talent for military strategy, and the emperor doted on her, sending her to her maternal grandfather's family for training. Zhou Wanlan was a woman of both literary and military prowess, who carved out a path to the throne amidst a sea of blood and corpses. She was a wise ruler. Only she could protect the Shin family and help me avenge the blood debt from my previous life. That's why I offered her my utmost sincerity and the best possible terms. With the financial backing of the Shin family, the wealthiest clan in the Great Zhou dynasty, her arduous journey to the throne in her previous life could be achieved with half the effort. Zhou Wanlan stared at me silently for a moment before casually uttering a single word, agreed. I blinked. The tension in my heart finally eased. Even if I was certain she wouldn't kill me, I couldn't help but feel nervous. After calming myself, I obediently said, "Thank you, General." Zhou Wanlan suddenly asked, "What is your name? Shin family maiden?" I paused for a moment before answering respectfully. "This humble servant is Shin Feiyu." The female general smiled suddenly, her cold, sharp features softening into a gentle expression. her beauty striking, Shin Feiyu. I happen to be in need of a female official. I think you would be suitable. My heart leaped with joy, and I hurriedly bowed in gratitude. Feiyu thanks the general for your promotion. In my previous life, under the rule of the Empress, women were also allowed to participate in the imperial examinations and enter the government. After being reborn, I had already made up my mind to take the imperial examinations and help Zhou Wanlan resolve the grain crisis. First, it was for the sake of the common people. And second, I simply wanted to make a good impression before the emperor in the future and owe him a favor. I never expected that I would end up leaping from a lowly position to a high one. It truly was an unexpected blessing. Zhou Wanlan led the army back to the capital first and ordered me to report for duty within a month. I rushed home without delay and told my father everything, including the fate of the Shin family in my previous life. Of course, I omitted the part about being sold to a brothel and tortured to death. My father didn't believe a word of it. Furious enough to tear Fang Heshuan to pieces, you traitorous scum of the Fang family. I've been so shrewd all my life. Yet I was betrayed by such a despicable villain, leaving my family in ruins. There was no point in hiding anymore. He made a decisive decision to accompany me back to Bianjing. I suffered severely from seasickness and couldn't travel by water. But fortunately, the specially made carriage at home was stable and spacious, so I didn't suffer too much. Halfway there, while resting at an inn, I accidentally witnessed an interesting scene. My father had already retired for the night, and I was sitting on the second floor with Tao Ji, drinking tea. Suddenly, there was a commotion in the main hall. Tao Ji glanced down and said with glee, "Isn't that the Fang family? How dare they treat him like a drowned dog and arrest him? Karma sure comes quickly." I was curious and peeked out to see what was happening. I saw Fang Heshuan looking disheveled and being held by several constables, while Ren Yenner stood by, her eyes red with anger. He shouted angrily, "I'm a scholar who passed the imperial examination. How dare you treat me like this?" The world was in decline, and selling official positions was an open secret. As long as one had money to buy a minor official position, it wasn't difficult. A mere jurin held little authority. Sure enough, the lead constable raised his fan-sized hand and slapped him twice, saying, "The emperor's law applies equally to all. You, a lowly scholar, dare to defy the law?" A man with a swollen face and bruises on his face grimaced and chimed in, "That's right. That's right. The honorable magistrate must stand up for the common people." From their conversation, I learned the details of the incident. The middle-aged man had once been a patron of Ren Yenner, and his words were rather lewd. Fang Heshuan, enraged by his actions, had beaten the man severely. The man, furious, reported the incident to the authorities, demanding either 500 taels of silver or imprisonment. With the imperial examinations just a few months away, Fang Heshuan had come to the capital to take the exams and did not want to be imprisoned. He quickly regained his composure. "I am the son-in-law of the wealthy Shin family. I did not bring any silver with me today. I can write you an IOU." The middle-aged man was not having any of it. "Pfft. Everyone in Qingshui town knows you were rejected by the Shin family. You still call yourself the Shin family's son-in-law? Do you have any shame?" Fang Heshuan's face turned ashen. "Who said the Shin family called off the engagement? We just had a little misunderstanding. This marriage was arranged by the grandparents of the Fang and Shin families. It's the will of our parents and the words of the matchmaker. How could it be called off so easily?" At this point in the drama, since it involved the Shin family, I couldn't stand by and watch anymore. I sneered and glanced at Tao Ji. Tao Ji understood immediately, picked up a cup, and smashed it on the ground. Shards flew everywhere, and everyone turned to look. Fang Heshuan saw me and was overjoyed. "Feiyu. Great! Come explain this to them for me." He spoke arrogantly to the constables. "That is Miss Shin, my fiancé. The constables didn't recognize me, but judging by my attire, they could tell I was either wealthy or of high birth. They immediately adopted a more respectful tone and bowed, asking, "Miss Shin, do you know this man?" I glanced at Fang Heshuan, who was looking at me with eager anticipation. Our eyes met, and I spoke calmly. "I don't know him," Tao Ji added. "Who knows where this ruffian came from? Do you think you can climb the Shin family's high branch?" The onlookers burst into laughter. Fang Heshuan's face turned from white to green. Renyener cried with tears streaming down her face, kneeling before me and pleading desperately. "Miss Shin, my life is so tragic that even my fiancé pities me. I never intended to disrupt your marriage with Xianlang. You can hit or scold me, but please don't blame Xianlang. Please save Xianlang. He can't go to prison. He's about to take the imperial exams and become a high official. At that time, you'll be the legitimate wife of a scholar official, and I'll just be a concubine. Why would you ruin your marriage over me?" I eyed the beauty before me with a playful expression. In my previous life, Renyener had approached him with the intention of destroying Fang Hexian. After the truth was exposed, she swallowed gold and killed herself, which surprised me greatly. I once suspected that she had truly fallen in love with Fang Hexian, until her body could not be found. I concluded she had faked her death to escape, using death as a fatal blow to Fang Hexian, aiming to turn him into a worthless person. Her words just now seemed like pleading, but she was actually trying to provoke me, fearing that Fang Hexian was dying too slowly. All right. In both lifetimes, she remained true to her original intentions, not swayed by love. With such a venomous beauty by Fang Heshuan's side, I can rest easy. Fang Heshuan was heartbroken and pulled the beauty to her feet. "Yener, don't ask her. Such a poisonous woman is unworthy of being my wife." He searched his entire body, scraped together 500 taels, and gave them to the constables. In the end, he was penniless and was kicked out of the inn. Before being driven away, he glared at me with a menacing expression and said harshly, "The humiliation you have inflicted today, I will repay you 1,000-fold in the future. Shin Fei Yu, do not mock the young." I casually interrupted him. "Do not mock the poor when they are young. Do not mock the poor when they are middle-aged. And do not mock the poor when they are old." Fang Heshuan was so angry he could not speak, pointing at me and stammering. I smiled slightly and corrected myself. "Sorry. I made a mistake. It should be, don't mock the poor when they're dead. Judging by your face, you probably won't live to see middle age." In the months that followed, I never saw Fang Heshuan again. I entered the princess's mansion and became Zhou Wanlan's female attendant, responsible for managing documents and assisting her with various official matters. In truth, there wasn't much official business to handle. Zhou Wanlan fought a hard-won victory but received no rewards, instead being feared by the emperor. The court was in turmoil. The old emperor's health was deteriorating. The crown prince's position was undecided, and the princes were all eyeing the throne. One day, I accompanied Zhou Wanlan in a game of chess. Her slender fingers held a black piece, and she suddenly asked me for my opinion. I calmly placed a piece, instantly breaking the black piece's encirclement of the white pieces rather than engage in conflict. Why not use this opportunity to go underground, bide your time, and watch the tigers fight from the sidelines? How do we do that? Hand over the tiger token and return to the princess's mansion to cultivate a harem. Zhou Wanlan fell into deep thought, her fingers tapping the table slowly. In her previous life, she had fought relentlessly, never backing down, and paid a tremendous price for the throne. My suggestion did not align with her personality. Just as I began to feel uneasy, she smiled faintly, her demeanor charming, and joked, "Non-fish was born with such a fine appearance. Does she have any brothers at home?" I knew she had agreed to my proposal. The next day at court, she deliberately provoked the emperor, successfully had the tiger token taken from her, and was sent home to idle away her days. She spent her time tending flowers, playing chess, and inviting theater troupes to the mansion to watch plays, pretending to be disillusioned and indulging in sensual pleasures. After all, the princess was a woman. There had never been a female emperor in this dynasty, and no matter how capable she was, people subconsciously believed that women couldn't achieve much. Thus, various factions gradually relaxed their guard. One day, the princess suddenly invited me to try a new restaurant. The head chef was from Jiangnan, and his specialties were all Jiangnan-style dishes I loved. I ate with great delight. Zhou Wanlan kept glancing at me for no apparent reason. I didn't understand why, thinking she wanted to eat but was too shy. So I quickly pushed the bowl of dongpa pork in front of her and said earnestly, "Princess, please try this. It's very authentic." She looked at me with a half-smile, then couldn't resist reaching out to wipe my lips. "The sauce is all over your lips. You're acting like a child." My face flushed bright red, and I stammered, "This humble servant has been disrespectful. Please punish me, princess." Zhou Wanlan rested her chin on her hand, her eyes sparkling, and spoke lazily. "Punish you? I just love little girls who eat so well." I felt even more embarrassed. "Your Highness, I'm 17. I'm not a child anymore." She narrowed her eyes and laughed softly. "I'm 4 years older than you. In my eyes, you'll always be a little girl." My heart skipped a beat for no apparent reason, and I quickly lowered my head to drink a few sips of soup. As we exited the inn, a beggar suddenly collided with us. I acted swiftly to shield Zhou Wanlan. My loyal act of protecting my mistress proved ineffective. The beggar was kicked flying by the princess's guards, landing on the ground where he writhed and groaned in pain. I looked closely and realized it was someone I knew. It was Fang Heshuan. Last time, Taoji told me he had failed the imperial exams and Renyener had gone missing. I had gloated over his misfortune for a while. The once glorious top scholar of the imperial exams had failed this time around. Truly, karma comes around, and heaven spares no one. Seeing him now, reduced to a beggar on the streets, I felt even happier. Fang Heshuan recognized me and crawled toward me, trying to grab my leg. Feiyu, I truly regret my actions. For the sake of our childhood friendship, please help me this once. I'll do anything for you." Before he could touch me, Zhou Wanlan kicked him away with a single kick. Her expression cold and stern. "How dare you?" She turned to look at me. "Is this beggar your childhood friend?" I shook my head repeatedly. No. I don't know where this madman came from." Fang Heshuan suddenly burst into tears, sobbing uncontrollably. "Are you trying to drive me to death before you'll be satisfied? I failed the exam. My mother died of grief because of me. Renyener ran away, and I have nothing left. Are you still not satisfied? Are you still angry?" I coldly replied, "Those who do evil will meet their own destruction. You have only yourself to blame for your current situation. What does it have to do with me? Since I was reborn, I haven't actively sought revenge against him. I even gave him 1,000 taels of silver. Yet he has still fallen to this point, with no chance of redemption. I said before, in this life, I will be the spectator below the stage. I will watch him build his tower, host his banquets, and see his tower collapse. This play has been performed to this point, and it's indeed fascinating." On the carriage back to the princess's mansion, I was lost in my thoughts, until Zhou Wanlan suddenly spoke. Her tone casual. "Is that your lover?" I nearly jumped out of my seat, disgustedly spitting 3 times. Then, once I regained my composure, I apologized bitterly. This servant has been disrespectful. Please punish me, princess. Zhou Wanlan seemed to be in a good mood suddenly, and said lightly, "Go on." So I poured out all the details of my feud with Fang Heshuan. After listening, Zhou Wanlan commented sharply, "You actually wanted to seek protection from such a morally corrupt person? Your judgment and your father's judgment are both beyond words." I quickly came up with a clever response, but my eyes have since improved, which is why I was able to join the military camp and find the princess's protection. This flattery hit the mark perfectly. Zhou Wanlan couldn't hide the smile in her eyes. Not only have your eyes improved, but your tongue has grown sweeter as well. You can charm anyone with your words. I smiled and replied, "Heaven is my witness, every word I speak is the truth." As we chatted and laughed along the way, the matter of Fang Heshuan was soon forgotten. Several months later, the third prince, Zhou Wensong, born to the Empress Dowager, emerged victorious among the many princes and was proclaimed crown prince. On the day of the crown prince's birthday celebration at the Eastern Palace, I accompanied the eldest princess and unexpectedly saw Fang Heshuan. After half a year of not seeing him, he had become the head eunuch of the Eastern Palace, his demeanor even colder and more gloomy. When he saw the eldest princess and me, he bowed respectfully, showing no emotion whatsoever. During the banquet, I stepped outside to get some fresh air and got lost. I heard heavy breathing coming from the artificial mountain in the courtyard. I hesitated, not wanting to disturb the two lovers. Just as I was about to slip away quietly, I heard their voices. It was the crown prince and Fang Heshuan. Fang Heshuan's voice grew sharp and seductive. "A mix of pain and pleasure, your servant can't endure it anymore. Please have mercy on me, your highness." The crown prince snorted with a laugh. "Teasing. You truly understand my heart. Even my crown princess cannot compare to you in the slightest. Once I ascend the throne, I shall make you the 9,000 years old, second only to me. I hear you have a grudge with the female attendant by my elder sister's side. Shall I have her killed for you?" I was so startled that I took a step back, accidentally stepping on a dry branch, which snapped with a crisp sound. The crown prince snapped, "Who's there?" In my panic, I mimicked a few catcalls. "Just a stray cat. I'll have them all killed tomorrow." The crown prince relaxed and continued with his lewd deeds, while Fang Heshuan's voice grew even more seductive. I felt as though thunder was rolling in the sky. To rise above others, Fang Heshuan was truly willing to go to any lengths. The crown prince was not only a homosexual but also played with eunuchs. No wonder the Eastern Palace was filled with concubines yet had no heirs. I steadied my nerves and returned to the banquet. With so many people around, it was not the right time to speak. Just as I stood beside Zhou Wanlan, I saw the crown prince and Fang Heshuan return one after the other. As he passed by the eldest princess, the crown prince gave me a meaningful glance. Moments later, a young maid accidentally spilled wine on me while pouring it, causing her to kneel and beg for mercy. The crown prince said, "Eunuch Fang, take the female attendant downstairs to change her clothes." A murderous intent filled the air, and sweat began to trickle down my palms. Just as I was about to refuse, the eldest princess stood up and said, "I also want to go out and clear my head. Let's go together." With Zhou Wanlan accompanying me, everything went smoothly. Upon returning to the eldest princess's mansion, I told Zhou Wanlan about the secret I had learned today. Zhou Wanlan then casually mentioned it to the fifth prince, Zhou Wuzhao. When he came to visit the princess's mansion, the fifth prince was the son of the Empress Dowager, who was deeply favored by the old emperor. He naturally refused to accept the crown prince's position being snatched away by someone else. On the surface, the situation seemed settled, but beneath the surface, the currents were turbulent. Sure enough, during an early court session, the crown prince was impeached by the fifth prince's faction, who exposed his scandals, claiming he was unfit to be the heir apparent. The emperor flew into a rage and stripped the third prince of his title as crown prince. The position of crown prince was once again vacant. Fang Heshuan, the mastermind behind it all, was executed by poisoned wine at the hands of the empress dowager, and his body was discarded in a mass grave. I sent men to the mass grave but found no remains, confirming it was another clever escape. To prevent Fang Heshuan from resorting to desperate measures, I doubled the guards at the Shin mansion to ensure my father's safety. In late June, the old emperor took the eldest princess and the third prince to the imperial summer palace in the suburbs of the capital to escape the heat, leaving the fifth prince behind to act as regent. On that day, the emperor received a secret report. The fifth prince had colluded with the military governor of Yuzhou and was plotting a rebellion. The emperor was furious and summoned the fifth prince and the military governor of Yuzhou to appear before him. The fifth prince refused to comply and rebelled outright. Just as the emperor was about to dispatch the eldest princess to lead troops against the rebels, the planet Venus appeared in the southern sky at noon. The head of the Astronomical Bureau reported, "The appearance of Venus signifies the emergence of a new emperor. This is an omen that the eldest princess is destined to rule the realm." The eldest princess and her confidants were placed under house arrest at the imperial retreat by the old emperor. The third prince emerged as the chosen one and, acting on the old emperor's orders, led troops to suppress the rebels. By this point, the situation had diverged completely from the previous life. In the previous life, the chief astrologer's prophecy about the golden star had directly pointed to the third prince, who was the one placed under house arrest. The eldest princess had been ordered by the emperor to lead the troops against the rebels, and after achieving a decisive victory, she seized the throne. One late night, an unexpected visitor arrived at my courtyard. The moment I saw Fang Heshuan, I understood everything. The changes that had occurred in this lifetime now had a reasonable explanation. He must have also been reborn. It was because he had a natural advantage that he was able to make plans in advance and trap the eldest princess in the imperial palace. I suddenly recalled that day in the eastern palace when I had stumbled upon their affair that day. "You knew that the person outside the rockery was me." Fang Heshuan did not deny it, but smiled. "I should thank Feiyu for that. At the time, the crown prince was too prominent, so I took the opportunity of his demotion to tone down my ambitions. That allowed me to escape the palace and hide in the shadows to help him plan." I smiled. "Is that so? I think you were just using the opportunity to escape the third prince's favor as soon as you could." Those words immediately enraged Fang Heshuan. His face darkened, and his voice, which he had been keeping low, became sharp again. "Shut up." After a moment, he calmed down and continued, "In my previous life, I was blinded by treacherous men and betrayed your sincere feelings. Rest assured, I have already killed Wang Zhonghuai and Ren Yener, cut off their heads, and have been whipping them daily to avenge you." I replied coldly, "You're not avenging me, you're avenging yourself. Aren't you? Without them, how could you have experienced the joys of being a eunuch?" Fang Heshuan looked at me with a loving gaze, sending a chill down my spine. "I made a mistake before. It was only right for Feiyu to speak harshly to me. I will compensate you. Once the third prince ascends the throne, I will have you carried to my home in a palanquin." These words were utterly repulsive. I didn't want to engage with him further and sneered, "The heavens have not yet decided the outcome. Isn't it a bit too early for you to be laughing so triumphantly? Fang Gonggong, the fifth prince has rebelled, and the third prince has been ordered to suppress the rebellion. Now, the imperial palace is left with only the emperor and the eldest princess. Don't you find something amiss?" Fang Heshuan's expression changed drastically. The next moment, the sounds of battle echoed throughout the imperial palace. The soldiers rushed in and pinned Fang Heshuan to the ground. I looked down at him from above and laughed lightly. "Fang Gonggong, you might as well save your 8-person palanquin for when you go to the underworld to marry your beloved Yener." Moments later, news arrived from the front. The emperor, frail and elderly, had written an edict abdicating the throne to the eldest princess. Thus, the outcome was decided. When I saw Feng Heshuan at the birthday banquet in the Eastern Palace, I had already guessed that he had also been reincarnated. Though he remained expressionless, trying to hide his true feelings, his demeanor and aura were identical to those of his former self as a powerful minister. I sent men to secretly investigate all his movements after he failed the imperial examination. Upon discovering that he had killed Wang Zhonghui and Renyener, I was completely certain that he had regained his memories from his previous life. All his subsequent plans and schemes were under my control and that of the eldest princess. We decided to use his own plan against him, employing a diversionary tactic to lure away the third prince's forces and force a coup. In this life, with my assistance, the princess's Red Army and her loyal followers were all spared. Everything went much smoother than in the previous life. The third prince and fifth prince were both executed. After the old emperor abdicated, he passed away within 3 months. When Feng Heshuan was executed, I saw him for the last time. He lay lifelessly in the corner. "You came to mock me again?" I replied calmly. "Have you decided how you want to die? Poisoned wine? White silk? Being torn apart by 5 horses? Or turned into a human pig?" He showed no emotion, as if he were already dead. I continued, "Do you remember how I died in my previous life? How about I return the favor?" He grew increasingly agitated, kneeling before me and banging his head on the ground. "I deserve to die. I'm not human. I'm worse than an animal. Shuangwen, please spare me. My mother died because of me. I don't want her to rest in peace either." I remained expressionless and ordered the jailer beside me. "Take him to Qingshui town. Keep a close eye on him along the way. Don't let him die. Showing mercy to an enemy is cruelty to oneself. Let all this enmity be settled in Qingshui town." After the empress ascended the throne, she implemented sweeping reforms, purging a group of treacherous officials with iron fist, and opened the imperial examinations to all, regardless of gender, allowing anyone to enter the court as officials. And I became the first female chancellor of this dynasty. Clothed in purple robes, standing at the head of the officials, I gazed upon the empress seated on the dragon throne from afar. Having been reborn, I finally altered the tragic fate of the Shen family and myself, embarking on a path of glory that was truly my own.